My name is Lawrence Davidson. Today is 16 August 2010. This interview is with Liam Larkin, and it's sponsored by the Soldiers to Scholars program of Westchester University. Please tell me your full name.
My full name is Liam Francis Larkin.
And where were you born?
Born in Oyster Bay, New York.
Did you grow up there as well?
I grew up there and moved to the Philadelphia area when I was like 12.
Okay. Tell me a bit about your upbringing. Family.
Pretty standard, middle class. Lucky my mother stayed home, father worked. I'm one of four. I'm the oldest. So I have two younger sisters and a younger brother.
Religion or church?
Raised Catholic. Went to Catholic school basically my whole life.
Okay. Describe your personality as a youth. Outgoing, active?
I would say, I mean, nothing crazy. I was a little crazy. I mean,
yeah.
I played about 50 million sports. I played about every sport I could fit into my schedule. So I would say an active childhood, but did what normal teenage and young kids do. I mean, nothing too bad, but nothing. I wasn't a saint.
At what point did you decide to join the military?
I was at Drexel University studying to become a mechanical engineer, and I don't think emotionally or psychologically I was ready to be on my own, and my grades were, I think, evidence of that. So the summer between my freshman and sophomore year, which was in 2001, I got a letter that said that I was on administrative and what do they call that? Basically, you have one more semester to pick up your grades, or we're kicking you out. I was kind of actively looking for another option, and I was working at a bar as a bar back, just doing a normal summer job, and I ran into a Marine who came in with his dress blues, and I got to talking to him, and of course it turned out he was a recruiter, and he did his thing, and he got me into his office, and a few weeks later I was down in MEPS in Baltimore, which is where you sign up to go into the military, and I left November of 2001.
So you chose the Marines simply because of the recruiter that came to you, or did you look at other services?
I didn't look at any other services. Not so much now, but before that, I was very, something came up, I would just jump at it, The same thing with, like, choosing what university to go to. I didn't apply to any other schools. I was like, I'm going to Drexel, that's it. This is how it's going to be. Boom. I was like that. Not so much anymore, thankfully. But a lot when I was younger, I would just jump and make, sometimes life-altering decisions, kind of, I don't know.
Did your prior image of the Marines influence you to join?
To be honest with you, I have
no
family members that were in the Marine Corps. I had family members that were like in the Navy and the Army, but they didn't really speak of it. I didn't have any concept of what the Marine Corps really was. I really kind of lived in my own little bubble, in my own little Liam world, and I was not really worldly, I guess is what I would say. And he was just a good recruiter. He got me, and I'm a really outgoing, social kind of guy. So I was like, hey, how you doing? Blah blah blah. It's a real nice uniform. He saw the end, got to talking to me, figured out what my situation is, and he goes, you're obviously looking for another option. He's like, well, guess what? I got one. And he had me in the office a couple days later. A couple weeks of me thinking about it, not really thinking about it. I kind of made the decision about 12 seconds after I started talking to him, but I just had to appease my mother and my father, And
were you dating or in a relationship at the time when you decided?
I wasn't seeing anybody. And he actually, he called me at work July 31st of 2001 and said, all right, we got to go today. And I was like, we got to go today? We got to go tonight. You need to sign up. Or it was July 30th, so it was going to be the 31st. Yeah. So if any recruiter ever tells you to sign up on the 31st of the month, run. Because it's a very good reason for it.
How did your friends respond? Initially, obviously, because you hadn't got too far.
To be honest with you, a lot of my friends weren't surprised. A couple of them mentioned, maybe the military is a good option. Because like I said, I was generally always really good, or at least athletic-wise. So it was surprised. I think they were a little shocked at the speed of it, you know, how quick. Like I said, I did that a lot.
You referenced your mom and dad earlier, or your mom. How did they respond?
My mom was in complete shock. My father, he said years later that he kind of expected it, that he thought that that was what was going to happen just because of the situation that I had found myself in. But my mother, I mean, you got to remember, I walk in at 1 o'clock in the morning and go, Mom, I need my birth certificate, my social security number. There's a staff sergeant in his dress blues down in our foyer getting ready to take me to MEPS up in Baltimore. And she was like, who the heck is this guy? What the heck's going on? I thought we were just talking about this. You know, we had a nice little conversation down in the down in the dining room, and you know, in the end, you know, what were they going to do? What were they really going to do to stop me at 19? Legally, they really had no leg to stand on. You know.
So did you choose, in part of the recruitment process, were you able to choose your occupation within the Marines?
Well, initially when I went down to MEPS, I had like 4 or 5 choices, and I took what they call the ASVAB, which is like it's like the SET.
Like an aptitude?
It's an aptitude test for all military personnel take it, and you need certain scores for certain jobs. And you know, I mean, I went to Drexel, and I mean, I did really well. I did generally pretty well in high school, so at least on the technical side, math, science, I've always done really well at. So I did, you know, I did pretty well. And the guy at MEPS said, you can pick. He basically gave me the book, and he said, you've scored high enough for any job here. Go ahead and choose one. And I promised my mother, and actually it was smart that I did that, that I would pick a job that would translate in the actual world. You know, so I wasn't going to go in there and just tout a machine gun, and you know, because that doesn't necessarily translate into civilian life. So that's how I chose my avionics, you know, electronic background, because I knew that, you know, when I got out, that might be something that I could utilize.
So what was the title of the job you did choose?
I chose 6400, and ended up being 6412/13, which is communication navigational avionics technician. So that's what I started as. I ended up picking up another MOS, which was much more fun, 6173, which is a CH-53 in-flight crew member. So I flew with the pilots and at certain jobs during combat operations. You know, the jobs vary depending on what the mission was.
Okay. Let's move on to some of your actual military training, like basic training. When did you actually leave for basic training?
Right after Thanksgiving, November 26th, 2008. I left for Parris Island.
Parris Island.
Yeah, Parris Island, South Carolina.
How did your basic training compare to your expectations and what you had built up in your mind?
I don't think you could ever prepare yourself for boot camp, Marine Corps boot camp especially. I think a lot of guys say this. They get there, and they're there like 15 minutes, and they go, well, what did I just do to myself? You know, it's designed to scare the crap out of you. I don't know how else to put it, and they do a very good job of it. I mean, they bring you in at like 2 o'clock in the morning. In South Carolina, the way it is geographically, it gets like this eerie, like 2 feet of fog, and you're like, oh my God, and they find the biggest, you know, what's it called, drill instructor they can find, and he comes walking into the bus, and you're just like, oh my God, what did I just do?
And you were in civilian clothes at this point?
Oh yeah, you're civilian clothes, you got long hair, and in about an hour, they process, well, not an hour, but they process you, they run you through, get rid of all your clothes, and they can put on, you know, fatigues. They shave your hair, and they use like the dullest buzzers that they can, and like half the guys, their heads are bleeding, and you know, they just run you in, because they're processing like 300 guys a day, especially then too, because you had the September 11th like push, so there's a lot of kids, there's a lot of kids going through.
Did September 11th have any effect on you joining initially, or was it simply the...
Well, I was already
Sure.
locked up at
Right.
that